Howdy folks, hope you're doing well. We're going to look at a solution to the project here, or we'll go and finish out the rest of our stock application. So I'm going to keep following along with this MVC model because I think that works very well for us, ends up with a nice clean result. You didn't have to do that at all for your project, so it's okay if you didn't, but I want to show you following along with that approach. So we've got the stocks controller, we've got the stocks view, and we have the stocks model. Okay, so I'm going to add in, let's do users next. So I'm going to add a new model for users. So make a new PHP file for users. And then it's essentially going to be very similar to this stocks model file here. Let me go grab all this, just with a couple updates. And let me fire up XAMPP here before I forget. And we can take a look at our tables in phpMyAdmin and make sure all that's working nice and figure out the right column names and everything here. We'll take a look at our stock database, and then we'll look at the users table here. So we want to see we have name, email address, cache balance, and ID. Okay, those are the important ones here. So we have for listing, this will be list users here then, right in our users file, list users gets the database, and we're going to select, well, what do we want here? So we wanted, forgetting those fields already, it was name, email address, cache balance, and ID. We want to select name, email address, cache balance, and ID from the users table. We'll prepare it, get it ready, execute it, and then this will be our $users, and then we can return users. They're a list of users. Okay, and then to insert a user, we need a couple values. So we need the name, we need the email address, we need the cache balance, and we need the ID. Actually, we don't even need ID, right? Because ID is going to be auto-generated for us. Get the database. Again, I'm probably going to get rid of a little bit of this junk here. So we'll insert into users. We have name, email address, and cache balance. And then the values will be our substitutes for name, email address, and cache balance. Then we go do our bindings. We'll bind name, we'll bind email address, and we'll bind cache balance. And the values we're going to bind to those are from the variables, right? So name, email address, double click, there we go, and cache balance. Okay, so we'll bind our three attributes here, and we can insert those in. Great, so we can insert a user. And then to update a user, now this one was a little bit funnier here. We're trying not to use the ID because it's just kind of annoying, and we had ended up saying, hey, let's add a unique constraint here and say the user's email address must be unique here. So you can only have one account per email address. Sure, that was just whatever we came up with. So updating then is probably just as easy to use the email address and not even have to worry about the ID. Just like we did stocks, we updated by symbol. We didn't have to worry about the stock ID behind the scenes. We'll use email address. So you give me the name, the email address, and the cache balance. I can do these things here. So we're going to update users. We're going to set name as name. We'll set cache balance as cache balance. Let's see, there we go, cache balance as the cache balance, where the email address then matches the email address that we're going to substitute in. So email address will be used to find that unique record here. And then we'll do the bindings here, so we'll set name for name, we'll set cache balance for cache balance, and then we'll set email address for email address, right, for our name variable, email address variable, and cache balance variable. Okay, then we should be able to update. For deleting a user, then we probably want a email address, because again, that was going to be what was unique here. So we'll delete from users, and then we'll just copy our email address line here, where email address equals email address, and we can copy our bind here as well. Copy that bind, we'll bind the email address, and then we can execute and close the cursor. Awesome. That's it for the user's model then, right? All of our functions. So we can read or list, right? Or select, right? We can create or insert. We can update, and we can delete for our CRUD operations. So we're in pretty good shape there. So let's go to our controller next. So we take the stocks, make this copy of stocks. We'll call this users here. And then we're going to require the users PHP model here. We'll get their action. Now we're going to have name. We're going to have, email address, right? Email address, and we're going to have cache balance as our variables here. So we'll get name, we'll get email address, and we'll get cash balance. And cash balance, again, probably as a float works out nice here for us because maybe you told us some pennies here. Okay. Now, if we wanted, we could do those combined insert or updates, just like we did with stocks. Sure, no problem here. We can do that if we wanted. So we would need name, we would need email address, and we need cash balance. Cash balance with 0 might be okay, but we'll assume not here. We'll probably say you never go down to 0. That's probably more you're going to delete yourself rather than update down to $0, if that's all right. We'll get the insert or update. So if we're going to insert, we will insert user. Otherwise, we will update user. Update user. Okay, and then let's need our, so the variables were name, email address, and cash balance. Again, same for the other function here for update. Name, email address, and cash balance. Great. And then we want to header them back to the user's PHP file. Back to the user's PHP file. So if we're going to delete, then that would be a delete user, right? And that would have to be email address is not nothing, and we'll call delete user given the email address. Otherwise, we'll tell them we're missing, what's it, name, email address, or cash balance, and include the view here. That should work. So we got insert and update, we got that one, and then we'll also include the user's PHP view here. And if there's any exceptions, we still just catch the same thing here. Now for views, we'll just pretty much copy paste that as well. So we'll have a user's PHP view here, and this will be our users list, including the top nav. This will have, when we have name, email address, and cash balance, and I guess the ID as well, sure. So that would be for users then, right? In our model, our users model, we are returning an object named users. So the view can get each user out of the users model, and then that'll be $user for each of these here, right? We had name, we had email address, we had cash balance, and ID. We can get our values out. And then we can add or update user. Again, the form will take us to the user's PHP with a post here. So we'll have name. Great. Let me add in email address. So email address. The name here needs to be email address. And give that a bring it back. Okay, and then current prices would be a cash balance for cash balance. And then we're going to have our insert or update, right? That same radio button here, no problem. And we can submit. Great, and then delete user. To delete a user, all we need here, we don't need the drop down. I guess we could do the drop down if we wanted to do the list of users here. It's probably a little bit more complicated than we need it to be at this point here. So let's skip that here, and we'll just have an input for an email address. We can always come back to that if we wanted to do another one of those. We don't need it at the moment here. And that was delete user. Okay, so we got our view, we have our model, and we have our controller. Let's give it a shot. See if we can see our users table here now. Oh, we didn't add it to the top nav. So in our top nav here, let's go add another link here. So we have stocks, and we'll do users. Again, this is the nice benefit here of having that shared top navigation we're just including in all of ours. Once I update it here, I can go get to users. Let's see. Nope, not quite done yet. So we still have some stock stuff. So what did we do wrong here? So let's take a look at the user's controller. Oh, I updated the wrong one. I updated stocks to become users. Good thing that's a copy paste. So I will cut out of stocks, come over to users, paste into here, cut out of here, and hopefully flip them and put those back the way they should be. Let's try that one more time. All right, so stocks should be stocks, users should be, ooh, goodness, okay, that's all right. Undefined function list stocks, users line 33. Okay, so some bad copy paste. So users line 33 is not list stocks. We want users is going to be list users. There we go. All right, not too bad. You know, a couple errors, but that's okay. There we go. And now we have a list of users. So I have me in here. Great. Let's see. Should we add someone? Let's add Dr. JP. JP Baugh at oaklandcc.edu. Let's give him $1,000 and we'll add him. Great, and let's go update. Let's update. Maybe he doesn't want to be Dr. JP. He wants to be Dr. Baugh. Same email address, jpbaugh@oaklandcc.edu. And let's increase his balance while we're at it here. Do this as an update and submit. Well, let's see. It didn't go through. So something didn't happen with our update properly. Let's take a look. So if we're adding or updating, I mean, it didn't even get any error messages either. So it should have been an update with an update user, name, email address, cache balance. I wonder if I spelled it wrong. Let me try it one more time, see if I spelled that wrong by mistake. Dr. JP, so Dr. Baugh, email address, copy paste that in, make sure it's the same. Do this as an update. All right, it is not going. Okay, that's all right. So let's put it in debug mode and see what's going on here. So let's run in debugger. Go to our user's application, and I can just continue on here because we haven't posted anything yet. Now we get this. We'll go and do the update. So Dr. Baugh, paste in his email address again, 2000, update. Okay, and now we should be able to catch the debugger here. Great. So I can step and see some values. I get name, email address, and cache balance. Excuse me. So we see the action was insert or update. And then did we have, I think I must have missed something here. Let's see. If insert or update, oh, now we're going to get that value here. Okay, so insert or update is update. If insert or update is insert, it's not insert. Is insert or update update? Yes, it is. Okay, let's step into our update user here then. So inside of update user, our update user function, we have email address, we have name, and we have cache balance. So we're going to update users. We're going to set name as name, cache balance is cache balance, where email address equals the email address. Okay, looking good so far. Bind our values, execute the query, close the cursor, come back to users file, get our list of users. Nothing? Okay, that's all right. We'll continue on. Let's see. Oh, now we're back to the file because we hit this page again here. That's all right. So let me take out the breakpoint and continue. Let's see. Nothing changed. Oh dear. Looked like it updated, so we must not have done this email address right then. Let's see. So our users model, we're going to update users, set name as name, where email address is the email address, bind our values. So we should have updated the name and the cache balance. That's interesting. Let's take a peek at our database here and see what's going on with users. Yep, that one looks okay. Looks all right. Update users, set name equal to name, cache balance equal to cache balance, where email address equals the email address. Okay, and it didn't error at all, right? It executed, didn't have any issues there with our statement. Let's see. Well, that is unfortunate. Let's see if we can, let's just do this by hand for a second here and see if that'll work for us. Just gonna play with this. So you can run Sql Commands directly here. So we'll set name is Dr. Baugh. Cache balance we're gonna put to 2000. Where email address was equal to, do I still, I probably don't have to on the clipboard, jpbaugh@oaklandcc.edu. Let's give that a try. And go. Okay, it says it took effect here, so that's a good sign. So now, yep, it is updated here. That's interesting. And our user list, now when I refresh, we get the new values, but our update itself didn't work. That is really unfortunate. Why would it not be working here? Name, cache balance, and email address. Let's see. Let's just see if we can delete them real quick too while we're at it here. So we'll delete JP Baugh. I wonder if it's because I copy pasted it in here. Yeah. Oh, missing symbol. Uh-oh. So our delete. Okay. Still have a couple errors here. That's all right. We'll get there. So users for delete then should header us back to users, but if we're missing something, right, we said if we didn't have any of those values, if the action was insert or update. No, we shouldn't have gotten any of those missing. We should have had an action, was delete, right? Before we got the missing in the users page. All right, it's all sorts of mixed up here now. That's our error page. Go back to the users page. It's in the error page. Yeah, error is just the error message. Nothing weird there. Oh, our form. That's why delete user went to the stocks application. That's why. Okay, so this needs to go to the users PHP. All right, we'll get there. We'll get there. One more time. So let's relaunch here. Let's see if we can delete. Go back to users. Delete. User. Oh, invalid parameter number. Parameter was not defined. Okay, that's a new error for us. Let's take a look at our users model. Delete from users where email address equals the email address. Oh, and I'm binding the wrong one here. I got the cache balance instead of the email address. There we go. Bad copy paste. Okay. All right, we're finding all those errors here. That's good. Oh, and right here, these were backwards. That's why that update wasn't working. I was binding cache balance to email address and email address to cache balance. Goodness. All right, that makes a whole lot more sense now. Why that wasn't working. Now we should be able to update our users here. Dr. JP, JP Baugh, oaklandcc.edu. We'll put to like 10,000. Sure, why not? And update. And now he's updated. Fantastic. All right, life is good. Make sure we can delete him as well. Delete. No, it didn't delete. Delete from users where email address is email address. Bind. I did. Oh my goodness. This bind here, I copied the wrong bind again when I thought I had it backwards. All right, one more delete for Dr. JP. JP Baugh. Delete. And he's gone. Fantastic. All right, so that is the users portion of that. Again, that was the easy one, believe it or not here. So now we'll take a look at transactions. So we'll do the same idea here for our models. Now this one is a little bit more complex, so it'll be fun. Let's grab our file here, copy and paste it. This is our transactions model. Okay, so we can list transactions. Now this one, again, had a couple other fields in it. So if you take a look at our database table here, we had user ID, stock ID, quantity, price, timestamp, and ID. Whew, got a bunch of those in here. I want to see if I can just copy paste because that'll make my life a little easier. Or maybe we can just do the SQL here and select. Maybe it'll give me select. There we go. So my query here then, we will select. And now I don't want any of these weird backticks here. That's okay. So I'm going to do like a quick find and replace on those. Get rid of all those. That's Control H for find and replace. So user ID, stock ID, quantity, price, timestamp, ID from transaction. We don't need the where one because that's just silly. Okay, and I'll bump that down a line just to make that look a little easier. Then we get transactions here, fetch all, and return transactions. Okay, so list is pretty easy. Insert transaction is much harder now. Transaction. So we have more values here. So we need a couple of these things. We don't need the ID, and we don't even need the timestamp really, because we can just default to the current time, which will make life easier for us. So if you tell me, and we don't even need the price either, because we are going to get the price from the data. I guess the controller could probably tell us what this is here. So we'll take these 4 values. So if you tell us the user ID, the stock ID, the quantity, and the price, we can go and insert those into transactions, and then we're going to give it these fields here. We're going to give it timestamp as well. I don't think we set that one up as a default yet, did we? So we need the user ID, we need the stock ID, we need the quantity, we need the price, and then for the timestamp we can say, I believe it's just now. I think that's the insert we looked at for these. So if I want to do insert a new value, I think we said we could do now. Is that what we did before with these? Let me take a look at our transactions. See if we can browse. I don't think we set any defaults on these, did we? Let's take a look at our tables again, the structure. Because if we did set a default, oh yeah, so the default is current timestamp, so we don't even need to give it the timestamp. It will just default for us, which is fantastic. That'll make life easier for us now. Okay, just those couple values here then. And then we will bind all of those, right? So user ID to user ID, stock ID to stock ID, quantity to quantity, and price to price. Now let's make sure I do these right, because that was unfortunate last time, but that happens. So let's do them in the right order, and then we'll double check we did it the right way. So the model here is just serving as the business logic here. So it'll do our database transactions for us. So user ID, stock ID, quantity, quantity, price, price. We should be able to insert those in. Close the cursor. For updating a transaction, we need those same values here. The user ID, the stock ID, the quantity, the price. Now we also need the transaction ID because I don't know what that is, right? So you're going to have to tell me what that ID was for it here for us to be able to update it. Excuse me. So we're going to update transactions, and then we're going to set all of these things here. So this one's a little bit long, but it'll be okay. So we're going to set user ID equal to the user ID. And then let me just do these all like on separate lines here maybe. And then we'll set the stock ID to the stock ID. And then we will set the, kind of separate these. Quantity to the quantity and the price to the price, where the ID matches the ID. We have quantity, quantity, and then we have price and price. That one's easy to type, price and price, where the ID matches the ID. And we have to go bind all those things. So the binds are the same here for these ones. And I just need to add a binding for ID. We'll do another one of these and bind in ID. Oops, I'm going to grab just that field. There we go, the ID field. Give it a format. Okay, so now we should be able to update a transaction. Again, we're not worrying about reverting any of their dollar amounts or anything like that. No big concern here. And then a delete transaction, given an ID, right? Because that's the unique identifier. We're going to delete from transactions, where ID is the ID. We'll just copy that line in, copy in our bind. We should be able to delete that transaction. Okay, so list transactions, insert transactions, update transaction, insert transaction, list transactions, delete transaction. Okay, I think we got those. So we'll come to the controller next. Let's make sure I do the copy here right. Nope, so let's take a copy of users. There we go. And we'll call this is the transactions controller. So our transactions controller, make sure I'm in the right file here. Transactions, we need the transactions model. Now we're actually also going to need the other models as well for this controller, because we need to figure out whether or not we're allowed to do these operations. So we need to require the other ones in here. We'll require users and stocks, which is fun. So that we can get their values, right? So we needed a bunch of different values here. So we're going to have a stock ID, oh my goodness, a user ID for user ID, and that would be a filter validate int here, because that'll be a whole number for those integers. For the user ID, it'll be the same for the stock ID, and that is stock ID. And then quantity and price. Probably floats would be okay for those. So I'm going to copy cash balance for those and drop that in twice. So we'll have quantity and price. Because technically you can buy partial stocks. It's a little funny, but if you wanted to, you could. So quantity and price. Actually, no, we're not even passing price, right? We're just passing the quantity, saying who's buying, what stock, and how many. And then we'll go get the current price back out. Okay? So then if my user ID is 0, or not 0, sorry, if it's not 0, and the, stock ID, that's right, stock ID is not 0, and the quantity is not 0. There we go, we're getting there. And quantity is not 0. So if all of those were good, then we're good to go for inserts or updates. And then whether or not we're going to insert or update, we will insert a transaction or update a transaction. Update transaction. And then we have to give it those things depending, right? We still need some of that logic here. So updates were nice and easy. We could just give it all of those values. We needed the user ID, needed the stock ID, it needed the price or the quantity. And we still needed to, I guess we need the price then, don't we? So we are going to need a price for updates. Okay, so maybe this insert or update's not going to work out well for this one, and we could do those separate. We could have one for insert and one for update. So that's fine. So we'll have an update or a price here. That'll just be for updates. For price. We'll take whatever price you gave us. Okay, if we're going to update the stock here. Right, and let's see. So insert or update. Yeah, so we can get rid of that option. That's unfortunate because I liked having the combined form. Maybe we'll just leave it and we'll just ignore the price on ads or something. I don't know, we'll figure it out. And then we want to go to the transactions controller here, right? And each of these, the transactions controller, and list transactions. Transactions view. Okay, good. We got those. And then for delete, then, if we were going to delete, we need to delete transaction. Delete the transaction given the ID. So we, oh yeah, that's right. We also need an ID, transaction ID here. Okay, we can get that. That's okay. This will just be an ID. It's just an ID, validated as an int. Okay, so we can get a couple properties out here. Not too big of a deal. Get the action. Yep, for delete. Insert or update. Yeah, we'll check on that one. Okay. All right, so I think we're in pretty good shape. Oh, that's right, our values here. So we need to go figure out if we're going to do these or not on the inserts. Right, so first we needed to check the user's cache balance, and then we needed to get the, oh my goodness, the stocks amount here. Now, our current models don't have a way to get a single user out. Right, all we can do is get all of the users. So we could do that and then go and find the one that has the matching ID. It will work, but it's not ideal for our purposes. So what might be better for us then is to give us a way to list users or a specific user. For our purposes, we'll go the easy route and we'll look at cleaning this up in another video. How about that? So we'll come back to our transactions controller and we'll just get users. So we'll say users is my list users. And then for users as user, if my user dot user of ID, right? I think that's our syntax here. Let's double check that. What were we doing for this? Where's our model? Yeah, user ID. Yep, here we go. Square brace notation. There we go. Square brace ID. Yep. If the user ID is equal to the user ID variable we have, then we'll go and get that this for each. There we go. Then if that's true, then we can go get that value out. So we'll have the cache or users cache balance. Then I'm going to assume it's 0. And then if we find a matching user, we'll set it to that user's cache balance. Let me go get that out of our model here. We can get the user's cache balance. Transaction controller. Okay, we'll get the user's cache balance. And we'll just loop through all of them, find one. Great, and then we're done. So now we have their cache balance. We'll do a similar thing for stocks. Right, so we need stocks here. Is going to be list stocks. And then we'll say the stock price. I'm going to assume is 0 until I know otherwise. And then for each stocks as stock, if it matches, if my stock of ID is equal to the stock ID variable here, stock ID variable, then my stock price, stock price, there we go, stock price is going to be equal to the stock of price. Right, I think it was price. Let me double check that here. Check our stock view, current price. There we go. That would have been no good. Stock's current price. So we'll get the current price out. Okay, and then we have a total cost is going to be the stock price times the quantity. Price times the quantity. Right, and if the user's cash balance is greater than or equal to the total cost, then we can go and insert the transaction, right? Then we know we can go do this thing here. Otherwise, if it was not very good here, we'd probably just give them an error and give a nice little error message here. Say like insufficient funds to purchase stocks, and include that error, and that's probably fine. And then yeah, so this needs to be stock ID, user ID, quantity, right? Quantity or something. I think something like that ought to do it here for that missing error. Right, so if we didn't have the funds that we just calculated, we couldn't do it. Otherwise, we are going to go insert that transaction. And then the insert transaction, where's our transaction model? Here. We need to give it the price. So this would be the single stock price when we're inserting here. So we're going to insert transaction for the user ID, for the stock ID, for the quantity, and then the price here. I think we wanted that to be the stock price. If you did the total cost, that's okay. This is like you bought them at this amount each. Is kind of what I had in mind, but again, either one, it will be okay for you. No big deal here. And then if we did that here, right, then we need to go update the user. Right? So we need more attributes from that user because we need to go update that user as well to change their cash balance. So updating a user, we need their email address and their name and their cash balance. Oh goodness, so we need to save all of those here. So go back to our controller. So we're going to need the user name is nothing to start. We'll need the user email address is nothing to start. And then we know what their cash balance is going to be, right? We've got the user's cash balance. Okay. So then we can set all of those things here then. So the user name is going to be my user's name attribute here. And my user email address is going to be my users, single of email address. Okay, and then if I have those attributes, I can go and call my update user. So my new balance here, new balance is going to be the user's cash balance, right, minus the total cost. Then I can call update user from the model. I can give it the username, and that's our username. We can give it the email address, and then we can give it the new balance here. And we'll go and update that. If they had the right balance here. Again, for updates, we're not worrying about it. And let's see, so transactions. Let's take a look, see if we can get that to work here. Oh, we got to add that transactions to our top nav again as well. So this will be transactions, for transactions. All right, and let's take a peek, see if we can get that to go. So, oops, no view. We didn't do the transactions view. Uh-oh, that's what we forgot. Let's go do a transactions view. No. Copy the file. There we go. Transactions view here. So our transactions view then will be our transactions list. And then this one was going to have a user ID. It was going to have a stock ID. It was going to have a quantity. It was going to have the price. It was going to have the time and the ID as well, right? So we the timestamp and the ID. And then for the transactions, as transaction, we'll go and get all those values out here. So ID is fine at the end here. Then we need all these other values. We need user ID. We need stock ID. We need quantity. We need price and timestamp. Price and timestamp. Okay, and then lastly the ID. Right, and then add our update to transaction is again not great here, but that's okay. So we'll have a user ID for user ID. We'll have a stock ID for the stock ID. We'll have a quantity as a quantity. And then we'll do price as well for this. So really we're only using price for updates. Update only, sure. You know, we can put in that note if we want here. Price, and then add our update. Make sure this goes to the right form here. This is my transactions controller as well. Make sure we're posting for that one. And then to delete transaction, we just need the ID. The ID, pass in the transaction ID, delete transaction. Oops, transaction. All right, now we've got that. Let's see if we can actually get to that page now, if we have a view. All right, no transactions. Oh, I think I typoed that. Line 21, let's take a peek. Line 21, transactions. Did I misspell it here? Let's take a look. Where's our controller? Oh, no, we never did this this one here. So this is transactions. There we go. One more try. All right, now we can see a transaction. We see timestamps. So let's go add one. So user ID 1, stock ID 1. Oh, let's see. Does my user have enough money? Yeah, I got a $1,000 cash balance. Stock ID 1's 115. Let's do stock ID 4. Okay, so we were at 1,000. So user ID 1, stock ID 4. Let's buy 1 here. Stock transactions does not exist. Okay, so we're typoing here in our model. Let's see, transactions. Okay, did we name the table wrong? What is that? No, it's transaction. So the table is not plural. Oh goodness. Sure. So that's fine. We can go change that. So select from transaction, and transaction. Okay. Let's give that a little fix. Come back here again. See if we can't. User ID 1, stock ID 4. Let's buy one of them. Okay, it did it here. That price was $275. So if I go look at my users now, I should have less of a cash balance, and I don't. Oh, goodness. Cash balance didn't update when we inserted that transaction. Let's see. So let's take a look. So our transaction, when we're going to insert, right? We're going to get all those values out. The email address. Did I do all this wrong? I don't know. Let's put it in debug mode and take a peek. Take a look at our transactions. And let's go 1, 4. Let's buy another one. Why not? And here we go. Excuse me. All right, so we'll get the users list. We'll get the user's name. For every user, we'll go find if a matching ID. And looks like we did. Right, so my username, Eric, email address, user email address, etcharneski. Okay, etchar1. Looks good so far. Let's get the stock. Not it. Okay, now we found a stock. We have a total cost. Total cost should have just been 1, right? So our total cost variable here at 275. My user's cash balance is 1,000. It is greater than the total cost, right? So this is okay. We'll insert the transaction. We'll get a new balance here. The new balance then should be 724, and then we're going to update user. Let's step into this one here and see what's going on with update user. So I gave it the name, the email address, and the cash balance. So name, cash balance. Why did I not give it an email address? Okay, well that's not, definitely didn't work right there. So what happened? Didn't we have an email address back here? Didn't we have that? Let's go back. User email address. I didn't, I gave it email address instead of user email address. That's why. The user email address is the problem there. Okay. If we give it the right email address, it should work nicely for us. Let's try that again. And let's go run it again. All right. Transactions. Let's see if I can just delete some of these real quick. So let's delete 3 and, oh dear, missing stock ID. Uh-oh. Email address, line 58. 58. 58. If delete, oh, that's ID. Oh goodness. ID does not equal 0. Well, that would be useful then, right? If we wanted to do the right thing. Okay, so let's go back and try our deletes. Let's delete number 2. Okay, that one deleted. Let's delete number 3. Great, that one deleted. Okay, now let's try and add. So stock ID 4, let's buy one of them. And let's check my user now. And now my cash balance is lower. Fantastic. We have transactions. Let's see now if we can update. So let's update user ID 1, stock ID 4. Let's say I bought 10 of them here. And then for the price, how about 200? And we'll call this an update. Uh-oh, too few updates to update transaction. Okay, so update transaction, user ID, stock ID, quantity, and price. What do we need for our model? What do we have in here for update transaction? Oh, we also needed the ID. That's right. We can't update that without an ID. Oh, okay, so that does need to be a completely different form. Yep, that was not going to work for us here. So this will be if the action is equal, let's see, we'll do an action for insert and then a separate action for update. How about that? Because we also need to give it the $ID here. All right, there we go. So we can get that one out. So this will be if our action is equal to insert and then we can get rid of this insert or update nonsense because that's fine. We can just do an insert here. And then for updates, great. Okay, we'll do another else if. We are going to, if the action is equal to update, and all of these things as well are not zeros. If we're going to update, and the ID does not equal 0 as well. We might as well check on that one. We can pass in the ID. That one's pretty quick. I'll give that a little format again here. So update, delete, we'll do those separately. Let's go back to our transactions form here. So this is just an add transaction here. We don't need these radio buttons. And then our action here then will be insert. Okay. And this is insert or add stock. I don't know, add stock. Right. And then we'll copy that whole form for an update transaction. And where we're going to include the ID field as well here. There we go. This is the long one. So the other ones are a little bit quicker, hopefully. So we need the price. Oh, that's right. We can get rid of price here, which is nice. We didn't need it. Insert, update, action, then it was update. And we call this update stock. All right, let's give that a run. See if that works any better for us. So adding a stock, let's make sure it still works. 1, stock ID 4. Let's buy 1. Okay, I was able to buy another one. Again, it took my cash balance down, which is good. Let's see if we can update one. So update ID 5, user ID 1, stock ID 4. Let's say I bought 10 of them here at 200 and update. Oh, no, it was missing something. Okay. Missing stock, user ID. Okay, so it didn't get something here in our update. If the action was update and the user ID is not nothing, stock ID is not nothing, quantity is not nothing, and the ID is not nothing, and price is not nothing, and price does not equal 0. Right, make sure all of those are valid for us here. Maybe bring that down a line. Should update. So it didn't pick up, did it not pick up the action? What did it not pick up here? So you have ID, user ID, stock ID, quantity, and price. Those all look good there. You have the action. I don't know, let's put it into debug mode. Let's see what we get for our updates. Let's see, we can just continue because that first one we don't need. Okay, update. Let's update ID 5 for user ID 1, number 4. Let's say that's 10 of them for $100 each and give that an update. So let's see what we got. So do we get a stock ID 4, user ID 1? Good, we got those. We have the, update is spelled wrong. Oh, goodness. Okay, so let's go fix that in our view. This should be the update here. There we go. And give that a stop and a run. See if that works any better for us. Now maybe we can update. So let's update transaction 5, user ID 1, stock 4. Let's say I bought 10 of them for $100 each. Update. Oh, goodness. Okay. where ID equals 5 in our update syntax. Okay, so all right, let's take a look at our transaction model. So this is, oh, there's last comma here is why. So we're updating stock ID, user ID, quantity ID, price, where ID, okay, with no commas. No commas. I wonder if I can just refresh. There we go. It just refreshed the form. Now it went through. Our price was 10. Quantity was 10. Did we do that? I don't think that was right for price and quantity. Let's see. So quantity is quantity. Price is price for update. Okay. Did we send through the right ones here then? Quantity and quantity. Price and price. Let's check in the model. For updating here, we're going to update transaction. Nope, transaction. This one here. So we're going to update the transaction for quantity and price. Okay. Let's try that again. Let's make sure it's going to work for us. So let's update transaction 5, user ID 1, stock ID 4. Let's say the quantity is a dozen here and price is 123. Let's see if that updates here. Yes, so we are not passing through the right thing here. Where are we not getting the right value when we're updating that? So is it in our model? Price is price, quantity is quantity, quantity is quantity, price is price. We're getting quantity and price values. Are we passing them all through properly in our updates? User, stock, quantity, price, price. Okay, those look okay. Let's go back to debug mode again then. So let's put it in here and let's check out our updates. Let's take a peek. We're almost there, folks. All right, and we can continue this first time here. Then we'll do an update. So let's update 5, user ID 1, number 4, quantity. Let's go 20 and 25 and see what we get here. So I should get 20 for quantity and 25 for price. Quantity is 20. Price is still 20. Oh, our value appears wrong. That should be price. There we go. We're getting the wrong value out when we were even looking for it here. All right, one more try. Here we go. Transaction. Let's update number 5. ID 1, stock 84. Let's go 20 and 30. And we get 20 and 30. All right, so I think we're looking pretty good here. Let's go back and take a peek at our rubric here. Where did that one even end up for me? Let's see. Grab this over here for you. Take a look at our rubric. So we have CRUD operations, 1 point per insert, select, update, and delete for users. Great. It's transaction table select, shows transactions, transaction updates, updates the row, insert gets the current stock price, checks the user's balance, updates the balance, or displays an error. We did check for insufficient quantity, right? Did we try that one yet? Let's make sure it's going to work for us here. Let's check for the insufficient quantity. So if I want to go buy, let's add a new transaction. So stock ID 4, if I wanted to buy 100 of them, it should tell me, we never got the error. It didn't display the error properly. We'll have to get to that. So let's see. So why was it not displaying our error? Because we're including the view. Oh, but then we still headered them back. So we shouldn't header them back. Yeah, that's okay. So that's not going to work for us here. Let's see. Because we want to do just maybe we just echo out the message here. Not the prettiest thing in the world, but it'll do for now. Make sure that works for us. So if I want to try and buy 100 of those things for, user 1, stock 4, buy 100, we should get the message out. Oh, it's still not. Oh my goodness, because we're still headering, so the echo's not even going to do anything for us. So we want to not header here if that works. So let's put this. I guess only if we did that then, right? Maybe we'll just throw that in here. So only if we did it should we header. There we go. Now we should be able to do 1 for buy 100 of them here. And now, okay, insufficient funds. Close enough for the error message. Again, we could make that cleaner later if we wanted. Delete got, updates the user balance and deletes the row. I forgot. So we need to get the current stock price and update that one here. Okay, so deletes need to be a little smarter here then. So after we delete the transaction, then we need to go get the current price of that stock and update the user. So we'll do the similar thing here, right? We're going to get the user here, And then we'll get the stocks as well. And then we'll get the total cost. And then we'll add that to the user's balance. Okay, so when we go for the deletes here, we can go delete the transaction. I'm going to feel a little bad about copy pasting here, but it'll be okay. We'll find the user. We need their name, email address, and cash balance. We need to find the stock with the matching stock ID. If we don't have the ID, we need to get the stock ID out. Let's see. So we can get the stock ID out if we list our transactions. So we can do the similar thing for our own here as well. So we're going to have to do a bunch of these things, and that's okay. So then we will have transactions is list transactions. And then my stock ID will start at 0, and then we'll say for each transaction as transaction, we want to go through and see, okay, if we can find if the transaction stock ID matches, the transaction ID matches our ID. Then we want to take our stock ID and set it to the transaction stock ID of that stock ID here. Okay, now we'll have the stock ID. Then I can go list the stocks, find the current price of the stock, then my total cost, or this is, I don't know what, sale is going to be my stock price times, I need the quantity out of the transaction as well then, right? So my quantity is going to be 0 until I know otherwise. If I find it, then I can set my quantity equal to the transaction quantity. Okay. There we go. And then we'll have that amount of money that was added. So then I can go and finally update my user, get their new balance, right? We're going to go update the user, get their new balance plus the total sale, right? And then we'll update the user given the new balance. Oh my goodness. All right, all that to delete here. That was quite the operation. Let's see if that works for us here. So now if I go and delete a transaction, so my current balance, right, is 448. So if I delete this one, I should get 20 times 30 to be 600. So let's delete number 5. I should add 600 to my cash balance. Okay, it didn't update. It did delete the transaction, but it didn't update my cash balance. Let's see. So let's take a look. So we probably rushed through. So we deleted the transaction. Oh, we don't want to delete the transaction first. We want to delete the transaction last. Because if you delete the transaction, then it is gone, right? And then you won't find it when we went through our transaction list here. Let's try that one more time. So let's delete, this one should put 275 back. If we delete number 4, go back to my users, cash balance still didn't increase. Oh, bummer. Okay, back to debug mode. Let's take a look. So if we're going to delete a stock, let's see if we can figure out what stock we're deleting. So we got to add one first here. So we'll continue on so we can add one. Let's add 1 and 4 and 1. Continue on. Actually, I don't want the breakpoint there. We'll continue. Okay, so now we have that. So now our new balance is 172. So now if we delete ID 6 here, let's see what we get. So we'll get our list users, and we'll get their name, email address, and cash balance for the user's ID. Oh, we don't have the user ID yet either. Oh, shoot. Okay, so we can't do that yet. That's why. Okay, so we need the users. We're going to list transactions first. Then we'll get the stock ID and the user ID out of that transaction. The user ID out of that transaction. User ID is my transaction user ID. Okay, then I'll have a user ID. I can get the stocks, and then I can get the user here, find where they match the user ID, find the stock where I match the stock ID. Then I can go get the total sale and update. Okay, let's try this one more time. I feel like it might work now. So if we delete number 6, We deleted the transaction. We went back to users. Cash balance went back up. Fantastic. I think we are all set, folks. Thanks for watching along. Hopefully this helped, and can't wait to see how you folks did. Take care.